Encuentros is sponsored in part by the Reinhardt Foundation, located in San Diego and dedicated to community projects in Mexico and Guatemala, helping others help themselves. And by Igasamex, bringing natural gas to Mexican industries.
Hello, my name is Jeffrey Davidow. I am president of the Institute of the Americas, which is located on the campus of the University of California, San Diego. This program is called Encuentros, which means in Spanish, meetings, and gives our viewers the opportunity to talk with or listen to leaders of Latin America. Our guest today is Felipe Calderon, the Secretary or Minister of Energy of Mexico. He is a very accomplished politician from President Vicente Fox's own political party. He has recently assumed the job of Secretary of Energy, which is the hottest seat in the Mexican cabinet, for reasons that we're going to discuss. Welcome. Mr. Minister, thank you for being with us today.
Thank you, Jeffrey.
You have said that Mexico is going to need, in order to maintain its economic growth, about $140 billion over the next 10 years invested in energy. Where's that money going to come from?
Well, the point is we need to invest in our sector, taking money mainly for the government itself. But of course, if we want to increase the rate of growth of our sector and the growth of our economy, we need to allow that investment in Mexico coming from other sources of investment. I need to say that the legal framework of Mexico doesn't allow to invest from private sector in energy until today. But of course, we need to see how we can face this challenge in order to get the money that we need to grow in the future.
You've talked about, and President Fox has talked about, a constitutional amendment to allow for private sector investment in electricity. But there's a lot of opposition to this. Can you explain to our viewers in California why there is this opposition? And do you think you will be successful in getting the constitutional amendment?
Well, electricity, as all energy sector, is a very sensitive issue in Mexico, maybe for historical or political reasons. The point is a lot of concepts in our history are very linked with energy. And what we want to do is to explain to the people that we will to preserve the power of the state and we will preserve the assets of the government, the property of the public companies, but also we will to allow to people to invest in Mexico in order to create jobs, in order to increase the supply of energy. And that will be a very good measure for the country. And this is the only way that we can increase the rate of growth and the only way that we can create the jobs that we need in Mexico. So I don't know if we are going to be successful or not. It's very difficult to say that. But what I really know today is today, by first time in several years, most of the people is in favor of the electricity reform. I have polls that 61% of the people is supporting the reform, against 27% against. And the reason is a lot of Mexicans want a better country. A lot of Mexicans believe in the future of Mexico as a developed country. And the way to do that are these structural reforms.
You know, Mexico and Canada have about the same amount of natural gas reserves. Canada exports to the United States about $10 billion a year. Mexico imports from the United States about $2 billion a year. What can you do to make Mexico a net exporter of natural gas over the long term?
Well, the name of the game is investment. We need a lot of money in order to explore and in order to exploit the oil and the gas that we have in Mexico. And let me tell you, for instance, maybe from one side of the river in Texas could be maybe 1,000 rings of gas, and in the Mexican side only 200 in a year. And the difference is money, the difference is investment, and in this case, the difference is the legal regime. So it's a very difficult point, and I can't talk too much about it. But as Mexicans, we need a lot of money in order to invest, and if we invest money in gas and oil, we can't have enough resources for our progress, and at the same time, we can export gas, as you say, to U.S. or any country that we want to export, and everything of that will be in benefit of Mexico.
Is the lack of investment in Mexico the reason that there has been such high costs for energy? For instance, the average driver in Mexico has to pay about, in U.S. dollars, about $2.40, $2.50 a gallon. Sometimes price gets that high in California, but generally speaking in the United States, the price of gasoline is about $1.50, $1.60, something like that. What causes such high prices here in Mexico?
There are several reasons. One is, probably the most important is the prices of energy are absolutely linked with the public revenues or income of the government. And let me tell you that 1 out of 3 pesos needed for public expenditures in schools or hospitals come from the price of gasolines, or the price of oil, or the price of gas. So the point is, one reason is we need the money. Pemex is the company of all the Mexicans, and if we don't have, as we don't have in this moment, a tax reform, a better regime in terms of taxes, all the money that we need to public expenditure will come from the prices of energy, and I realize that it's not the best decision for the country. So in the future, we need tax reform in order to get money for the taxes as all the countries, and we need more competitive prices of gasoline, gas, oil for our industries and for our economy. If we have a competitive sector in energy, we will have a competitive sector in all the Mexican economy.
It always is interesting for an American when he drives or she drives in Mexico that there are relatively few gas stations compared to the United States, and that the prices are high, and all the gas stations are of the same company, Pemex. Do you ever see a day, or think of a day when one could drive down the street in Mexico and see Total, BP, Shell, Exxon, Texaco? Is that going to happen?
Well, I don't know, but I would like to see Pemex in California and New Mexico and so all those countries. I would prefer. Well, but let me tell you, this is a very interesting question. If you see a gasoline station in Mexico, probably the owner is not Pemex. The owner could be any Mexicans or any company, and only the only the name is Pemex. But I do believe as a competitive in the competitive systems, but we need to go step by step. I'm not quite sure that the next step needs to be several oil companies in our streets. Even I think in order to reform our energy sector, we need to be very carefully in cultural terms. And maybe if the people see, come on, you can see Shell and you can see Chevron or you can see Texaco in the streets. I don't know how much we will win from that, and probably the reaction of the people will not be exactly the best.
Well, you know, you were saying you would like to see Pemex in the United States. Of course, that's a strategy which the Venezuelan oil company adopted, and Venezuela owns Citgo, which I think is now one of the largest distribution systems in the United States. But that's something to think about down the road. What about renewable energy? Mexico obviously has capacity for solar power, for wind power. Are you doing anything in that regard?
Yes, but not enough. I really believe in this kind of energy, in particular wind energy, for instance. There are some generators used in Europe, and somebody bring these generators to Mexico to Oaxaca, where we have a very good site in order to generate by wind. And those generators were not useful for the area. The wind is so strong in Oaxaca, is stronger than in Europe, and we need our specific and more powerful generator for electricity. So that I want to say is we have a huge capacity and potential for this generator, but for this time we generate only, or we have only 2 megawatts of capacity, and we have probably we can have probably more than 1,000 megawatts from wind electricity. So, and we have a lot of capabilities or natural resources to alternative energy, and we need to use that. But the point is, probably we don't believe in alternative energy, and we need to change this way of think, because the world will need in the future energy coming from other sources of hydrocarbons.
When you say we don't believe in alternative energy, you're talking about the Mexican public.
Yes,
not the
I
Mexican.
do believe. I
You
do believe, but
of
maybe we as Mexicans, we need to believe in that.
Right, of course. One of the big issues being discussed right now, in addition to electricity reform, is the possibility of allowing foreign companies or private investors, even in Mexico, to join with Pemex in terms of producing natural gas. And this scheme has been called multiple services contracts, and a few have now been, there have been bid processes, a few contracts have been given out. But there's a lot of question about whether this is actually legal under Mexican law, for the reasons you talked about before. Is this going to have to go to the Supreme Court of Mexico?
I don't know, probably, but I'm quite sure that there will be not legal problem in this multiple service contract. Even if I need to say that the licitations for last week, nobody applied for that. Mm-hmm. What is the reason? The reason is are not very attractive contracts for a lot of companies in the world in the sector. Because this, in legal terms, it's only a contract where Pemex contracts some enterprise to do some works, and that's it. And it's a lot of money, but that's it. Mm-hmm. There is not, but Pemex is the owner of the oil or the gas. Pemex is the owner of the assets, and maybe these contracts are not very attractive. And let me tell you, these legal schemes are very old. Pemex contract with somebody else since, I don't know, 30 years ago in order to build a platform or in order to open a road or anything. And multiple service contract is only this usual way to do contracts but only in an aggregate way, in a very massive operations. But that's it. And it's a very sensitive point, I need to say. A lot of legislators are against the multiple service contract, and in public opinion, there is a very strong debate. But I'm quite confident that there will not problem in Supreme Court in the case that somebody wants to refuse or to make a legal suit against multiple service contract.
Let me change the topic a bit. Mexico, Canada, the United States are united commercially in NAFTA. Now, when NAFTA was negotiated, energy was left out.
And immigration left out.
And immigration was left out.
Yeah.
Do you think there's a deal to be made?
It's quite interesting. It could be. I need to ask you that.
Okay.
But it could be a very good. I don't know. I believe in market, and
Right.
I think there will not be free market if you have only a commercial market but not labor market,
Yeah.
and maybe if you have not enough interchange in terms of energy, you will not have the benefits of the market. So, as a region, I think North America has a lot of potential, a very big potential, and we need to be intelligent enough in order to get the benefits for all three countries.
Yeah, I think you're making a very important point that NAFTA is essentially an agreement, a free trade agreement that deals basically with goods and services. As such, it is very different from the European Union, which is a much broader agreement that deals with free flow of people, free flow of investment. There are certain investments which are not permitted in Mexico. Certainly free flow of people is not contemplated yet. And this is a vision for the future that I think is still many years away, but a good idea. But is there more that could be done now when you have these three countries that are all very large producers of energy living side by side? Could there be, for instance, a North American electricity grid? Is that something that we should have that would go all the way from the top of Canada to the bottom of Mexico? And what about pipelines and other cross-border activity? Is there going to be more of this?
In all these things, I think, will be more. Right now, we have pipelines crossing from U.S. to Mexico. We are importing from U.S. a lot of gas daily, a lot of cubic feet daily. And probably in the future, if we have enough money to invest, probably we will export gas from Mexico to U.S. or electricity or energy in only one word. So the point is, we as Mexicans need to push for a more quickly development in the area, and we need to be very believers in the future. We need to think that the potential of our country is enormous. So we need to take the decisions now. I think it's a very sensitive issue. I can't talk a lot of things because it's very dangerous in political terms, and if we want to move forward, we need to do step by step. But I think our conditions, our neighbors, will do a lot of interchange in gas or electricity or oil itself. Mexico export most of our oil to U.S. and most of the gas that we import from U.S. and investment and a lot of things are absolutely linked among these three countries. And that's the present, and that will be the future.
Mexico is already exporting electricity, to the United States from two major new energy generation plants in Baja California. One of the criticisms that was made of those new plants was that they were not up to environmental standards in California, although it appears that that criticism was not correct, and those plants now meet all California standards. Do you think that you will see more plants being constructed in Baja California or along the border that will be sending electricity up to the United States?
I can't say that. I would like to have enough electricity plants in order to provide our own necessities and enough to even export electricity. In this case, for instance, we export some electricity to California, and in some cases and some hours we import electricity for some industries in the border. So the point is, I don't want to discuss about the standards of our plants. Of course, our plants are very fit the standards, and I don't know if inside brackets, if the energy problem of California is linked with, or was linked with, some excess in terms of environmental standards. And in order to get almost impossible environmental standards, California got this terrible crisis in past years, but maybe it's another issue. I think Mexico has a potential. We need to use that potential in order to get enough energy for our necessities. But if we can't produce even to export to other countries, for instance, United States, that will mean Mexican Mexican jobs, that will mean Mexican resources, that would be more development. I think could be a good idea. I know that it's a very sensitive issue. The Mexican government, the compromise of Mexican government is mainly with Mexicans and primarily with Mexicans, and we are looking for a reform in order to satisfy Mexican necessities. And we can discuss, but only after that, the others' necessities.
Let me change themes entirely. In California, where this program will be seen, and in other states, there are millions of Mexicans living, some with documents, some without documents, but all have been promised the right to vote in Mexican elections. Will Mexicans living in California be able to vote in the presidential election in Mexico in the year 2006?
I would like that, but I'm not quite sure that that will be possible. Let me tell you, as you know, as you knew, as an American ambassador in Mexico, American people can vote in American elections from his place here in Mexico by mail or maybe other ways. And other countries, for instance, the members of one nation living out of the country can gather in the embassy offices in that country, vote, and maybe have a drink after vote or something like that. If we try to gather the Mexican people living in Los Angeles in the Mexican consulate, it will be very difficult, I suppose.
A lot of drinks, yes.
A lot of drinks, yes. We can support the drinks.
Yes,
that will not be the problem, but I think the logistic is very complex, and I would like sooner or later to recognize the right to vote for any persons in any part of the world, the right to elect our government, and the right to decide in terms of the country. But I want to be honest, and we need to talk about the problems in order to establish or to implement that in 2006. I think I would like it will be wonderful, but I think it will be a little bit difficult in this time.
Mexico, let's go back to energy. Mexico is being very open to the whole issue of liquefied natural gas. Although Mexico has large gas reserves itself, your ministry and Pemex, the national oil company, have made a decision that it is a good idea to import liquefied natural gas from other parts of the world. Can you explain why a country that has so much gas of its own would want to be importing gas from elsewhere?
Oh, of course, the best alternative is to exploit our own gas. But if we have not enough resources in the short time, and we need by higher prices as we have right now, we need to increase the supply of gas in the area quickly. And in order to do that, we can, of course, try to get up our own production, but at the same time, we can increase the supply in the area by liquid natural gas method. So we have a very strategic positions in the area. We have coasts in the Atlantic and the Pacific. We have access to the gas from Middle East, or the gas in the Caribbean, or the gas from the East and the gas of South America. And we can do that using our coast. And technology has changed recently, and one or 2 decades ago, the market of gas was a regional market. Why? Because the only way to use the gas was by pipelines, and only the gas available in your home or your place has a price. So that's the reason that we have different prices of gas in the world. One price is in Texas, one price is in Saudi Arabia, probably only $2, and in Texas probably $4 or $5. But with liquid natural gas technology, by first time we can import, or we can move gas by sea, and to use this technology to increase the supply in the area. And I think it's an objective of Mexican government. Why? Because our enterprises need gas in a cheaper way. Because the price of gas is so higher in the area, because there is not enough gas for Texas, for Mexico, and for a very good part of the United States. So the reason is that we are looking for better prices. We are looking to cover the necessities of our productive sector, and that's it. Pemex is looking for the benefit of the country.
Thank you so much, Mr. Minister. For the United States, for California, having a strong, economically viable Mexico is extremely important. And if Mexico can grow its energy, then it can grow its economy. This has been Encuentros. Join us for our next program coming next month. Thank you very much.